Good evening, Algebra 2. Today we're going to be talking about factoring, which I hope you all know, love, remember how to do. Well, maybe not remember how to do, but as soon as you watch this video, some of the stuff will come back to you, I promise. Hopefully. We'll see. So, factoring, the formal definition is rewriting a polynomial as a product of two or more factors. So, just a really quick example of factoring. Let's say we had something like x squared minus, or let's go 3x squared minus 5x. So what we recognize is that both of these things have an x involved, so that I could rewrite this as pulling the x out front. Now, if this guy had two x's and I took one, it would just then be 3x. And then if this guy had one x and I took it, it would just be negative 5, and that's all. So factoring is basically the reverse of multiplying through. And you can always check your work by actually distributing this back through. So x times 3x is 3x squared. And then x times negative 5 is a negative 5x. Is that what you started with? Yes, it is. So you know that you factored correctly and that this is your official answer. So you can always go back and check, okay, which is what's nice about this. Now, there are actually 4 common ways of factoring. First is factor out the greatest common monomial factor, which is essentially what I just did here. That would be this type of factoring here. 2 is using special formulas, which I'll show you. 3 is using trial and error, which I'll also show you. And then 4 is using the factor theorem, which we will actually learn about in the next unit, or actually 1.5, I believe it is. So we'll see that. All right, so your first example here, it says factor 6x cubed minus 18x squared. So my suggestion would be always to try, so always look for a greatest common factor, or GCF, of your terms. If there is none, there is none, and you skip that step. But I would always start here, just because if you start here, even if it factors further beyond that, it'll make it a lot easier if you take out the GCF at first, okay? So your greatest common factor is basically the biggest thing that you can divide both of these terms by. So I always look at my numbers first, so 6 and 18. What are they both divisible by? Well, your factors of 6 are 2, 3, 1, and 6. Your factors of 18 are 2 and 9, 1 and 18, 6 and 3. So the biggest thing you can pull out of both of those would be a 6. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. 6 comes out here. And then I look at my variables. So, and then I look at x cubed and then x squared. Well, this guy has 3 x's to give. This guy has 2 x's to give, so what's the most I could take out from both of them? Would be 2 of them. So you would have x squared here, okay? I can take 3 from this guy, but this one doesn't have a third to give, so I can't do that. So you basically look for your lowest exponent, and that tells you how many you're allowed to take out. Our lowest exponent is 2, so that's what we're taking out here, okay? Now let me get rid of all this hullabaloo so we can actually read it. All right. And then we'll figure out, because we're not quite done yet. We have to then say, okay, well, what's left over? And then we put that in parentheses. So 6x squared is pulled out. So you do 6 divided by 6, which is 1. And then x cubed divided by x squared is going to be x to the first. So 1x to the first power. Okay? Or you can think of that, your variables, as, oh, I had 3 x's, I took 2 out. It means I have 1 left. Okay? And then we have a minus here. We do 18 divided by 6, which is going to give us 3. And then 18, well, we took care of that, so our x squared, we had 2 x's, we took them both, so there are no x's left, so we don't put an x there, okay? So this is our answer. Let's just clean it up a little bit, because I don't need this one, and I don't need this one. So essentially you have 6x squared times the quantity x minus 3, okay? And like I said before, this is our answer, but before you even box it up as your answer, or circle it, or whatever it is you do, I would always multiply back through just to make sure you get with what you started with. So 6x squared times x is going to be 6x cubed. And then 6x squared times a negative 3 is a negative 18x squared. And guess what? That is what we started with here. We have 6x cubed minus 18x squared minus 18x squared. So it does check out. So this is our answer. Alrighty, so that is one way to factor. That's called common monomial factoring. If you try that and it doesn't work, or you try that and you think you can go further, we have another type of factoring to fall back on, and these are our special patterns. So write these down. You're going to need these. You're going to see these more than once, and if you don't know how to use them, you're going to be causing a lot of trouble for yourself. So Your binomial square factoring, the first one for all a and b, it says if you have a trinomial of a squared plus 2ab plus b squared, that is going to factor into a plus b squared, the quantity. And then the second one is the exact same pattern, except for your middle term here is negative, and that makes this middle term here negative, or this middle sign, I suppose. Okay, so a squared minus 2ab plus b squared is going to give you the factors, whoops, it's going to give you the factors a minus b squared. Okay? The next pattern you have here is your difference of squares factoring, and that says for all a and b, if you have just two terms to start with, like up here we had 3, you have just two terms to start with, they're both things squared here, so a squared minus b squared, then that factors into the exact same binomial, except for one has a minus sign and the other one has a plus sign. So please make sure you get these down. I will show you how to use them here in a second. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and see how one of these special patterns works. Whoops, sorry. I don't want a pen. There we go. Alright, so we're going to factor 9m squared minus 49. So right off the bat, I recognize, hey, we only have two terms here, neither of which, can I pull a 9 and 49? Do those have a greatest common factor? No, they do not. And this guy has an m squared to give, but this guy doesn't, so I can't pull that out front. So then I start thinking, this might be one of my special patterns. So let's note that we have 9m squared here and minus 49. There's two terms. If I go back to my special patterns, well, we started out, these guys both have 3 terms, so that's not going to work for us. This guy here, though, has a squared minus b squared to start. So this might actually be the pattern that we want. So let's go ahead and take a look. We're going to write this down on the next slide. So a squared minus b squared equals a plus b times a minus b. So let's see if that fits. So a squared minus b squared equals a plus b and a minus b. So we got to see if what we have actually fits this pattern. So what does it have to do to fit this pattern? Well, it just has to be something squared here. So can I break this thing down into something squared? Well, yeah, I just square root both things. So 9 square rooted is 3. M squared, the square root of that is just m. So that guy checks out. So then we just have to check, is this guy a perfect square? Well, 49 was the square root of 49. It's 7. So yeah, these things that we have here are both squared. So what we do then is, since we square rooted them, we use the 3m and the 7, and we just fill in your a's and your b's. So your a was your first thing, so 3m. So we need 3m plus, and then b was our second thing, so 7. And then we write the exact same polynomial except with the minus. Okay? So this should be our answer. This should be what it factors into. But remember what I always say is you want to actually FOIL it back out to actually double check that it actually works. So here we're going to FOIL. So we have 3m times 3m, which is 9m squared. First outers, so 3m times a negative 7 is a negative 21m. Inners, positive 7 times 3m is a positive 21m. And finally, last, positive 7 times a negative 7 is a negative 49. And then what happens to these two terms right here? We have negative 21m plus 21m. Those guys are going to cancel out and be gone. So all we're left with is this 9m squared minus 49. Well, we're in luck, because that is exactly what we started out with. So we know that it checks out and that this is our actual, for sure, answer. All right, I have a lot more factoring examples to show you. So let's go ahead and hop over to the next video. So I hope you'll join me for it.